I brought the clock with me.
You're gonna put it where you can see it?
I'm going to put it right here. And when we get to where what time am I supposed to end?
Yeah.
11:30?
That's part of the problem.
Never done that.
Yeah.
11:20.
No. 11:30, we're going to stop no matter what, because I pulled some extra parts into today's sermon time, but I don't want to double the sermon time. So I brought it here. I don't have to see it on the wall. It's going to be right here. Hey, pull up a chair, Chris. This is Gunnar Smith, and I'm going to introduce him, and we're going to talk for just a minute, in just a second. But first, I have to tell you about this picture. Y'all see this picture?
Yep.
So some of you have been here on Wednesday nights, and Tim Johnson's been having us pray for a group of Cubans. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Who are trying to go to the Mediterranean rim to do mission work. There's 300 Cubans in churches who are trying to pull a large chunk of them together to go, like almost all of them, to go to the Mediterranean and do mission work among the refugees. Do you hear what I'm saying, church? I mean, this needs to blow your mind just a little bit. This is not rich Americans trying to figure out if they've got time to go to the Med Rim. This is Cubans, communist, grew up under Castro, Cubans. All right? But this morning in Cuba, they baptized 400 people. 400 baptisms this morning in Cuba. And MRN got this photo of the people working their way out into the ocean for baptism. Just, God is moving in the world. And I want us to be part of it. Do you want to be part of it?
Yes.
Do you want to be part? Yeah, I hope so. So this guy's going to tell you how you are already part of what God is doing in the world. All right? Are you ready? Do you want to hear from Gunnar this morning? Okay, I'm trying to get you to act excited. Okay, thank you. All right, Jackie, go ahead and go to the map so Gunnar can tell us what's up.
All right, so if you look at the map, that's lower East Africa, and this summer I'm going to be in Kenya. It's just north.
Which is where Mombasa is.
Yeah, if you see Mombasa up there, that's in Kenya. That's where the stops I'll be in. But I'll be in Kenya in that little top area for 3 weeks, and then I'll be in Zanzibar, that island with Katwa and Zanzibar town. I'll be there for 5 weeks. But to preface all of this, I wanted to
Hold it
hold
closer.
it closer. Okay. I wanted to talk with you guys because first off, I'm obviously in need of support of this trip, but I wanted to express that as much as support that I'm needing and that I'm trying to accomplish, I wanted to let the church know that you have already been a support for this trip. Growing up in this church, in the years that I've been here, y'all have been supporting me in my mission for years. And this is just a stepping stone for me. If you don't know me already, missions is what I'm getting my bachelor's degree in, and it's what I plan on doing. Still don't know where I want to go, and still trying to figure out where I can be useful. And this is one of those things where I'm exploring where the world's hurting and what hurt I can confront. And so, just so to preface this, I really wanted to let y'all know that y'all have given me a heart that wants to do stuff like this. Isaiah 49 says, it was too light to be just a servant of God. It was too light for you, so I will make you a light to the nations. Like, it's too light of a task just to say, God, I believe in you. And, you know, I'll be your people and you can be my God. It's too light of a task. And this church has shown me that it is too light of a task to just be a servant. That to be a light to the nations is what God has given Israel. He says it's too little to just be a servant. You will now be a light to the nations. And that's really what I've seen from growing up here, is that it gave me that heart of I don't know what I'd do if I had an office job. I was like, I'd just be antsy all the time. And I really just want to be out there and in the jungle, you know, metaphorically. And so I wanted to thank y'all first, because that's what this church has been to me. And
So,
with that said,
he's doing the most unusual mission trip I've ever heard of. First, you're leading a team from the Broadway Church to Kenya to do a
Yes.
3-week short-term mission trip.
yes,
And you're the leader of that trip.
yes,
And then you and your cousin
yep,
are going to go to Zanzibar
yes.
and do this crazy thing I've never heard of a college kid doing for missions. Explain what you're doing.
Okay, so I sat down with my professor, and he was in Uganda for, I think, 27 years.
Sean Tyler, he's
Sean
a friend to
Tyler.
a lot of them.
Yeah. And I said, man, I really want to get my hands on something. I really want to get out there. I want to know about church planting. I want to know about how to start ministry and things. And that's really something that is learned from experience. And so he told me, he said, you know, we really need some survey work in Zanzibar. We have no idea what's going on in Zanzibar right now. The government says that Zanzibar is 99% Muslim. But when he was there, he heard a lot about, you know, little tiny bits of churches, you know, just all over the island. But they're so small, and he has no idea how they're connected, or you know how many people go. And Zanzibar is this really fluid population. There's mainlanders, there's tourists, and there's locals, and they just come in and out. And man, we have no idea what the Christian life is like there. And so my mission is to basically explore the island and find missionaries and find church leaders and find Christians and believers that might be worshiping in hotels in the street. And a saying that we like to refer to all the time in my missions classes is that missions is not done on a table in America in some air conditioning. It's done under a tree with the people across the ocean. And that's really my goal, is a lot of ministry first begins with listening. And we have no idea what's happening in Zanzibar. So that being said, my mission is to go listen. My mission is to go and ask them, what is your message to American churches? And what are some things that we can help with if you are connected to, you know, several American churches? What is something that we can do to spread the gospel through you? And what is something that we can do to also see through your eyes and your ears and help a brother? And so I'm going to be asking those kind of questions. Why did you start this ministry? How many Christians worship here? Why did you start this ministry? And what kind of needs do you see in Zanzibar? You know, essentially what kind of hurt is going on. And man, that's really, I'm so excited for that. Because,
And what is God doing among you?
yeah, and what is God already doing there? And I like what Ron said earlier when we met, is that this is not just Americans coming and saying, you know, this is how we're going to help you. It's Americans coming and saying, how can we help you? And it's not just, you know, I'm not just here to benefit you, but I'm here, the Church Universal is here to benefit the Church Universal. And I really like Ron saying that earlier.
So do you hear that? This
It's a
is
world church.
missions to listen first and then to be heard. Missions that listens first and then asks to be heard. And that just blows. Is anybody besides me just excited about that? I'm geeking out over here because this is, when I went to Africa, Sean Tyler, your professor, invited me to come teach the parables, which I'm teaching to the college age class right now, to church leaders in Uganda. And I got over there thinking I was going to teach them something. You know what happened? Ron learned very quickly, Ron doesn't know as much as people in Africa know. And you know what? The parables were all written for agricultural, rural people in the eastern part of the world. And here I was, a Westerner, who, you know, pulled a few weeds out of my mama's tomato plants, thinking I knew what the Bible was about. Guess what? They understood the parables better than I did. Are you with me, church? So I'm so excited because here's a missions department of one of our colleges saying to a young man, we want you to go make first contact with what God is already doing in Zanzibar so we can learn what God is doing and then we can join that work. Is that cool? Yes. Folks, I'm telling you, it's really cool. And it fits with what's happening also in Cuba and what's happening all over the Mediterranean Rim, and the lives of refugees are being impacted, and God is active and moving and changing the world. And I hope and pray we can figure out how to be part of it. Okay, I get you. You get one more spot.
Right.
Anything else you want to say before I give the money club?
So our goal really is to listen and not to you know, have these solutions, these American solutions for these African problems. Our goal is to say, we want you on a grid for as many churches that we can get you on. We want you to be known amongst the nations. Is that these churches, in, you know, a tiny church with 5 people worshiping in a hotel room means a lot to the world. And so we want them to be. We're going to put them on this program called Mission Link. You know, if you don't know what Mission Link is, it's just this. It's essentially this grid that any missionaries can, if they're a part of it, can look at it and learn more about this church and about this ministry. And churches can also be connected with Mission Link, and students can be connected with Mission Link and know about these churches and know about what's going on. And so that's really, we want them to be known and seen amongst everyone. And giving them a voice, because like I said earlier, it starts with listening and letting the American churches and churches around the world, they can also listen and they can also participate in what's going on. And that's really cool.
Beautiful. So you came in 5th grade or 6th grade?
5th grade.
Here's a kid, an Oak Ridge kid. He's a grown man, but I'm 57, 8 years old. And a kid who came to us as a 5th grader, and you, Oak Ridge, received him, and now, Oak Ridge, you are sending him into the kingdom. And as Kelsey pointed out to me in between class and worship, you need to notice that this is a millennial who wants to impact the world with the gospel of Jesus. Amen. And you need to pay attention. But Oak Ridge, what he's telling you is, you are the ones who gave him the heart for this, and you are sending him. So, with that said, Oak Ridge has already donated $500 towards the $4,000 he's got to raise. Connie approved us, her mission budget, making that contribution to his work this summer. If you want to know how much he actually still needs out of that $4,000, come talk to him. Or you can come ask me. I'm going to ask him afterwards. I don't want to put him on the spot to do math in front of you. But we can talk, we can find out. But if you would like to contribute personally to his campaign, his work this summer, then you can donate through Oak Ridge for the tax benefits. Just if you write a check, put something on the memo line, or if you're giving cash, or somehow let us know that you want that contribution to go to Gunner, and we'll get that money into his account so that he can buy the plane tickets and get himself set up to do the trip. Can we get I don't know any other way. Can we get a round of applause to just say all that? Vicky's going to come read a scripture for us.
You take care of the earth and water it, making it rich and fertile. The river of God has plenty of water. It provides a bountiful harvest of grain, for you have ordered it so. You drench the plowed ground with rain, melting the clods and leveling the ridges. You soften the earth with showers and bless its abundant crops. You crown the year with a bountiful harvest. Even the hard pathways overflow with abundance. The grasslands of the wilderness become a lush pasture, and the hillsides blossom with joy. The meadows are clothed with flocks of sheep, and the valleys are carpeted with grain. They all shout and sing for joy.
Amen. Yes, church?
Amen.
Do you serve a good God? Does he send the rain on the righteous and the unrighteous?
Yes.
Does he bless us with abundance?
Yes.
Does he answer your prayers?
Yes.
And I don't know if you caught this. There was a lot of water theme in the songs we sang today. And it's interesting, one of the songs that was originally picked was Difficult, and we chose that song, Turn My Heart, O Lord. And even in that song, it had this great line about rivers. The rivers that flow. And I know that you're going to think, what in the world does any of that have to do with loving our enemies? But I'm telling you, the God who sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous, the God who clothes all the fields with sheep, does that for everyone. Because we are his children, church. And this passage we're looking at today closes with, be compassionate as your heavenly Father is compassionate. I want you to hear this Psalm 65 in your heart as you think about what Jesus is calling you to do and be and become. I'm going to read Luke 6:27-36 to you. You're welcome to follow along in your Bibles or your Bible apps. Jesus has just finished those Beatitudes we talked about last week. And it says, but I say to you who are listening. So he's still there. He's carrying over right away from woe to you when all people speak well of you, for their ancestors did the same things to the false prophets. But I say to you, I say this to you. And who's he talking to? In that previous section, last week, we talked about it. Who's he talking to?
Disciples.
The disciples. He's speaking to the disciples, not to the crowds. He's speaking to those who are following him. And our theme is follow Jesus. He's speaking to us, folks. Okay? I say to you who are listening, Are you listening, church?
Yes.
Love your enemies. And do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. To the person who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other as well. And from the person who takes away your coat, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who asks of you, and do not ask for your possessions back from the person who takes them away. Treat others in the same way you would want them to treat you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. You see, we've just balanced the books. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to be repaid, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, so they may be repaid in full. But love your enemies, and do good, and lend, expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, because He is kind to ungrateful and evil people. That's the God you serve. The one who waters the roads so that even the hard pathways become abundant in as the fields. Be merciful. Be compassionate. Just as your Father is merciful, is compassionate. It's a very simple passage to understand, yes?
Yeah.
Nothing complicated about the language here. Jesus is not being tricky with what He has to say to us, but it's extremely difficult to live out. It is so hard. Yes, church?
Yes.
I want to share with you a prayer that was prayed back in 2017. The Sunday evening service of Palm Sunday. Do you hear me, church? So it's Palm Sunday. The church gathers on Sunday evening in a burned out, blood-stained church in Egypt that had been bombed that morning by terrorists. This prayer is prayed by the pastor of that church, by the priest, over that Coptic Christian church. And they are asked to pray it with him. Now, we're not going to pray it together. I'm just going to read it to you. And if you want a copy of it, I've printed off 12 copies of this. I can print more, send it to you via email. Remember, O Lord, the terrorists who love you and offer their lives for your sake. This is the priest of the church that was bombed, praying for the terrorists who bombed it. But they are ignorant of your knowledge. They resisted their own humanity for your sake, but they didn't know that you are humanity and mercy and love. Remember, O Lord, those who planned and who performed and who cheered. Enlighten, O Lord, their souls so that they know you in truth. Enlighten, O Lord, their minds so they know you in righteousness. Enlighten, O Lord, their hearts so they know you in love. Open, O Lord, their eyes as you opened Saul's. Help them. Strengthen them. Accept them. And raise them. For you are the one who forgave the thief on your right with your justice, and reconciled with the Samaritan woman with your compassion, and wiped away Peter's tears with gentleness, and also accepted Saul and raised him and magnified him. So don't forget the terrorists, for they were the reason for the arrival of your martyrs to your embrace. Make them the reason for the salvation of others. Look for them, O Shepherd of the shepherds, according to your great mercy, not according to our sins or their sins. I want to walk you back through that prayer, and I want to give you some very practical things to think about when you are loving your enemies. So Jackie's going to take us back to this very first slide. And I want to say to you, I need to define for you what Jesus is telling us in the passage our enemy is. Do you hear me? Giving you a definition for enemy, I'm changing it. Because we tend to think in this world, we tend to think of our enemies as those who would enact violence against us. Okay? But that's not how Jesus describes our enemies. What Jesus is describing in Luke 6 is anyone who is disinterested in our well-being. I'll let you hold on to that for a second. Your enemy is the person who is disinterested in your well-being. They're apathetic towards you, or they are strongly against you. But they can be your enemy on any part of that spectrum, and Jesus says the way I want you to respond to them is by loving them so that you can transform them. I want you to look at those people who are disinterested in your well-being, people who ignore you, people who insult you, people who hurt you. I want you to look at those people as opportunities to express and to share the transformative love of God. And so what you see here is a priest who knows and understands they are ignorant of your knowledge. They don't see you. They see you as a God of retribution and a God of anger and a God of punishment and a God of holiness, but that's not who you are. Remember them, God, and show yourself to them. He asked them to enlighten their souls. Go to the next slide, Jackie. He asked them to enlighten their minds. He asked them to enlighten their hearts. He asked them to open their eyes the same way God opened Saul's eyes. Do you hear that? He is saying to the terrorists, I'm praying for you that you would become great apostles, because Saul was a terrorist killing Christians. And the church prayed for him. And he became a great apostle in the church. Is that blowing your mind just a little bit, church? Do you understand how well this priest understood the situation he was literally in the middle of? It's amazing. What we have to do is begin to understand that apart from God, all humans are lost. We are all lost causes. We are all caught up in activity and relationships that are broken and hurting and divisive. And our first step is to see people as potential friends, as potential brothers and sisters in the kingdom, even if they're disinterested in us. And then to pray for them that God would transform them, because it's not my job to win the argument. It is my job to love them. Are you still with me, church? Let's go to the next slide. You see, the Bible is replete with stories of people who are enemies of God becoming friends of God. And these are just a few examples. But notice he ends again with Saul. And he is literally praying for his enemies. You see, it's real easy to say pray for your enemies. And it's easy for us to say, God, please be with the Muslim world. Please be with their leaders. Open their eyes. Give us peace. And to move on. But this priest is literally praying, take these hearts and transform them into great hearts of service for you. To see the potential relationship, to see the potential service, and to pray for God to transform another life. Last slide. This was the part that tore me up, because he prefaced this prayer in his sermon by saying, we have more people in church tonight. There are more people here tonight than were here this morning. When the bomb went off, only a few of us, only part of us had gathered in here for morning services. But tonight, you have come from all over the city. Some of you haven't been in church in months or years. But this attack on us has made you hear the call of God on your life. And you've come home. You've come home to be in the church. And this church building is filled up. We have to thank the terrorists for that. They brought you together tonight. I'm going to tell you, I've struggled as I watched the video when it was released. It's not on the internet anymore. I don't know why. But as I watched the video when it was released, I thought about how I would feel if I were a member of that church who hadn't been in church in years, and I had come in here out of solidarity with my fellow Christians, knowing that someone had attacked them harshly and cruelly. I asked myself, how would I respond to being told, the martyrs brought you home to God? And I just have to say, it would require enormous humility, because my natural flesh would want to find those terrorists and bomb them myself and retaliate, eye for an eye. No, the third thing I want to say to you is this prayer and Jesus' words teach us that our job is to recognize that God sometimes uses Nebuchadnezzar's and Cyrus's. He sometimes uses King Saul's. And even in Paul's own life, he named fellow Christians who had worked against him and spoke badly of him and hurt his ministry and attacked his ministry. But these words are teaching us that when we have enemies, we look for how God is using our enemies to call us to obedience and to call us deeper in relationship with Him. This is hard. I told you, we started the year by me saying, it's hard to be like Jesus. And I'm telling you, right here, we've hit the first place where it's really hard to be like Jesus. And you could focus your thoughts on Muslim terrorists, which is what I've done this whole sermon. But I really don't want you to. I want you to realize your spouse is not your enemy. Can I get a witness? Do you ever feel like your spouse is your enemy? Do you ever feel like your spouse is disinterested in your well-being? That's putting it mildly. Come home and tell your wife, I don't want to decide what we want for supper. Right, Trent? I want you to understand, Jesus calls us to hug the porcupines in our life. That's the word that's the phrase Brenda and I use when I'm not behaving well. And we know what I really need is reassurance that she loves me. Yes? Yes, church? So what we need to do is recognize the potential of service in our enemies. That they too are children of God who can be transformed. And to pray for their transformation. And literally ask God to bless them with success. To accept them and honor them and magnify them the way He did Saul. And then to recognize that their presence in our life may be discipline for me. I may need to be looking at what's going on in my life. Maybe their presence in my life is about me repenting and realigning my life with God's. I think that's so powerful. Okay, I'm going to ask you to stand. I want to read a prayer. I don't know what time I said I was going to end, but I've only gone 15 minutes past it. Okay. I want to read this prayer to you, and then I want you to pray it out loud with me if you agree with it. I have adapted this from Philippians 2, 1 through 5. I'm really moved. I've been posting this on my Facebook page, and I'm really moved. This morning, after I posted it, a friend of Brenda and I's from this a fellow season ticket holder at the Wings who's living in England, she reposted it. And to know that other people are going to read this prayer and pray it with you today moves me. It moves me. Almighty Creator, create in us the mind of Christ. Cleanse our hearts so we can love as Christ loved. Clarify our confusion so we can think as Christ thought. Call us to your mission so we will serve as Christ served. Confront our selfishness and pride. Content us to care for others with humility. Concern us with others' interests before our own. Merciful Father, create in us the mind of Christ. Please pray with me. Almighty Creator, create in us the mind of Christ. Cleanse our hearts so we can love as Christ loved. Clarify our confusion so we can think as Christ thought. Call us to your mission so we will serve as Christ served. Confront our selfishness and pride. Content us to care for others with humility. Concern us with others' interests before our own. Merciful Father, create in us the mind of Christ. Amen, church. Please remain standing.